Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us tonight. This is our final session of our Design 101 series, Interior Design and You, and tonight we're going to cover building a mood board. So again, thank you so much for everyone who's joined the past two sessions. I know if you have joined, you probably recognize me, Alessandra. I'm actually passing the torch to Karina tonight, who's going to lead this session. Karina has an amazing eye and is probably the best person on our team at building mood boards, and we think that she can share a lot of her process with you and kind of walk you through what will end up being a really amazing creative outlet for those of you who might be feeling a little bit tired of what's happening in your life these days and are looking for something fun to turn to instead. So I'm going to turn it over to Karina, and then at the end we'll take any questions as well. You can ask about mood board, or if there's anything else you're curious about, we will take those questions as they come, and then Maddie and I will be manning the chat and try to answer anything that we can as it's coming in. So Karina, let me turn it over to you. I'm going to go on mute and give Karina the reins here.
Awesome. Okay, well, thanks, Alessandra. As Alessandra mentioned, today we're going to be talking about creating a mood board. Mood boards are a great way to kick off the creative process of discovery, pairing, and visualizing by saving things together all in one place. You can really create a mood board for anything. Mood boarded out is a common phrase on our team because we're such visual learners and are constantly gathering inspiration by way of photos of furniture, fabric samples, or paint swatches. Pretty much anything we'll throw up on a mood board just to visualize it. So because mood boards are so impactful in the interior design world, we thought, why not show our community a few tips and tricks on how to create their own mood board? So I'll kick it off with a few common uses for mood boards. Mood boards are great tools for planning to see how a space will come together. They're also used to concept and play with different ideas by way of visual experimentation. Overall, the main purpose of a mood board is to gather inspiration and set a tone or vibe for a project. And you definitely don't have to actively be working on a project to create a mood board. You can simply create a mood board to stay inspired or tinker or pull things together that you might be attracted to. So what is a mood board? Here are 3 examples of different mood boards. Each are unique with their own purpose and visual direction. The first brings together furniture and decor pieces to see how they will all fit and vibe off of one another in a space. This is a great type of mood board to create during the furniture shopping process or even pre-furniture shopping process. If you see a great piece that you love either in store or online, you can pull it into a mood board to help aid your decision paralysis and see how it might work with other pieces that you already own. The second mood board in the middle here is a little bit more geared towards space planning. As you can see, we're bringing textures together, finishes, and finding inspiration. Connecting with the interior design world, following designers, and observing designs unfold in real life is a really key benefit to the social media sphere, specifically Instagram. And one of my favorite places to seek inspiration is also through books and magazines. I love turning to publications outside of the interior design realm as well, such as travel books or even fashion magazines. Although they're not specifically interior design, they do have a tremendous influence on taste and lifestyle, which is incredibly important to consider when you're designing a space in which to live. So I've listed out a handful of my favorite publications at the moment on this slide. Live Beautiful by Athena Calderon and Travel Home by Caitlin and Julie are great design books that I'm just really loving at the moment. I also linked them in this presentation so you can directly access them when we send out this PDF. Magazines I tend to frequent are usually Elle Decor, Dwell, Domino, just to name a few. One key tip I've learned when hunting for great magazines is to venture into the international section of your local magazine shop or bookstore and pick up a few magazines from different countries in the interior design realm because they always have such a different perspective and their imagery is super stunning. And finally, turning to the outside world is such an amazing place to seek inspiration. I love taking photos on my morning walks just of plants that are inspiring me or buildings, even shops that I pass by. Maybe you draw inspiration from a certain building or style of architecture that you pass on your morning walk. Whatever it may be, just pay attention to the way that you feel when you enter a space. Does the cafe you go to every single day make you feel happy or calm? There could be design elements in there that you can pull from for inspiration. And now that we've covered a few basics of mood boards, let's build one together. This is my finished mood board of a passion project of mine for a future living room. I realized that as I have been sitting in my small one-bedroom apartment for all of quarantine, I have been needing a little bit of a refresh and some visual escapism. And because traveling to Greece and renovating a villa just isn't in the cards for me right now, I'm mood boarding it out for a future living room project. Now, I realize that seeing this mood board in completion might be a little bit overwhelming. So you probably might be asking yourself, how did I get here? What are some key steps to take to start a mood board? So I'm going to walk you through step by step my process to help you understand what decisions I'm making and why. So first, I started with one single inspirational image. I pulled it because I loved the color scheme going on here with the neutrals and pops of natural green. I also loved the earthy natural textures and the curvature of the architecture. For many of you, this could be a photo of an inspiring place that maybe you've traveled to, or an image of something that you might be captivated by. It's okay to start really broad and general, and because you can then work your way into the details as you go. So next, I found a more concrete inspirational photo that kind of spoke to me. I wanted the interior design style to look like this, and I pulled it because I love the neutral base and contrast that was brought into the room by way of wall art, and I was super drawn to the furniture style in this photo. And next, I added in a sofa that I already own. I wanted to build the room around this piece and have it help inform all of the other furniture pieces that I choose. One key thing that I like determining after I have one or two elements in my mood board is wall color. Wall color is such a decision, and it requires experimentation and tinkering. So I pulled these paint samples from Behr just by going to their website and selecting a few colors that I was drawn to, clearly in the gray neutral family is where I like to live. And pulling them into my mood board will help me see which undertones these grays are working best with in the furniture that I'm selecting. Another great piece to draw in next is a rug. Rugs occupy a great space in our homes, and by great space, I mean large. Rugs tend to take up a huge area in our rooms, and they often carry such powerful textures and colors, so it's important to see them up close and personal. At this point, I was looking for a little bit of greenery. Going back to my original image, I loved the use of greenery, so I selected a simple olive tree in a jute basket to introduce a bit of green foliage and natural texture. If you're looking for a pop of green and you love neutral spaces, plants are a great way to add a touch of color to your space. So now at this point, it's time to bring in a furniture piece that helps to offer a bit of definition to the space. This accent chair I pulled in because it has a really organic vibe by way of its curvature of the furniture form itself and use of cane material, which really pairs well with the jute rug I have in there. And next, this ceiling pendant helps to really anchor the space. It's organic, woven material is on the cooler side in terms of neutrals and helps to offset the warm tones from both the rug and accent chair, which while still feeling both neutral and inviting. So now I'm into a bit of an experimental phase of finding great flooring. I love the way that this natural brick creates a geometric pattern, which really complements the more neutral and organic vibes that are already happening in the space by way of the chair and the pendant. So those geometrics on the floor are kind of playing with the curvature of the chair and the pendant. And at this point, I was looking for a little bit of pop. I added in this art piece because it helps to offset the neutral base I've created with its bold, dark frame. And then its subject matter adds a new, warmer color into the mix. And a secondary art piece adds another layer and can quite literally be layered over another piece of art on a shelf or mantle, perhaps, to add a bit of depth and character to your space. Adding a few other accent pieces, such as art and side tables, can really help make the space feel fuller and more layered. For example, this side table sits near the chair and contrasts really nicely with the warm wood of the chair, also that of the rug, because the side table is so starkly white, it really stands out, which is what I was going for. And next, I know I'm going to need storage in my living room, so I found a few practical pieces, which I know will go a long way. These baskets, I know I'll need one day for things like books, dog toys, pillows, anything that just will really end up on the floor. So I found some neutral baskets that speak to the vibe I'm going for. And I love that their shape is really similar to that of the pendant, and the texture and tone of them ties all of the neutrals together. So far, I've been really loving the organic, natural curvature in these pieces I've chosen. So I found a coffee table that evokes those aspects in its structure and its design. Its warm, natural wood tones tie nicely to those of the accent chair. So now that I've got a great base going, I can start finding smaller details, such as curtains. I pulled them in on the far left near the wall color samples because I wanted to see how they would play together in the tones of each color sample. And from here, I felt as though the space was feeling a little bit one note. And by one note, I just mean all one tone of color. So I pulled in a vintage rug to lay over the jute rug. This will add a bit of color variation and also a bit of pattern, which we haven't really seen that much on this mood board yet. It also will help to ground the space because it is going to be the darkest element in the room. Now, tinkering is a really fun part of making a mood board, swapping things in and out. So I swapped out the wood chair because I felt like it was feeling a little bit hard and stark, and instead pulled in this curved boucle chair. Boucle is a cozy material that is great for accent chairs. It's reminiscent of shirling, which is a material that's commonly used on the insides of coats or slippers. So it's the perfect material to cozy up in a really nice accent chair. And it also adds a touch of textural warmth to the space. And so now that I have the majority of my space sorted and a handful of pieces that I really love, I can more confidently decide a wall color. I chose the darkest of the three grays because it acts as a neutralizer for all of the whites in the space and pulls out the grays from the vintage rug, baskets, and pendant. And that's kind of it. This is a really general process and also very personal for how I like to create my mood boards, but I love starting really big and then working my way into the smaller elements of the space. So now that you've seen a mood board come to life, here are a few tips and resources that I've found helpful and generally recommend to folks who are just getting acquainted with mood boarding. First, the main places where you can go to create a digital mood board are usually Keynote for Apple users, or Google Slides works great too, each of which it's really easy to click and drag your photos into, and you can just copy and paste them in there as well too. I also recently discovered Canva, which is a free app in which you can create mood boards simply by clicking and dragging your images in there. So I've linked it into this slide too, so you can access it directly after the presentation. And most commonly, I'll do my mood boards by hand. I love cutting images out of magazines and pinning them onto a board. There's something that's really intimate and creative about doing a mood board by hand that I really love. So if you are creating a mood board digitally, I find it super helpful to save your images to your desktop and organize them into folders. You can then easily drag them into whichever presentation you might be building, or just good old copy and paste them into a document. So one key takeaway that I always come back to when building a mood board is that it's often easier to start and tends to be more fun to start large. Start with one image like we did earlier, or start with one furniture piece and then work your way into the details. You don't have to have everything all at once. Part of the mood boarding process is gathering things as you go. So you can also look for inspiration in really unexpected areas to help inform your design. Turn to your wardrobe, brands that you buy from, restaurants you frequent, or where you may like to vacation. There are often little elements in which you can pull inspiration from in there that will help to help inform your overall direction. And finally, if you take one thing away from this session, it's that there is really no wrong answer when it comes to building a mood board. It's an incredibly personal journey and process that is so unique to you. So go with what feels right and let the pieces speak for themselves. And with that, I'll open it up to any questions that we might have. We can talk about mood boards or anything general that we might have covered in all 3 of our sessions. I'll invite Alessandra back in to answer any questions, but thanks, guys.
Well, I have one great one to start, Karina, and that is, where is that cane chair from that you had on your mood board originally?
The cane chair is, I can go back, there's 2. So there's this one, and then there's this guy. So yes, this one is from Crate and Barrel.
I'm asking about.
Yes, this one's from Crate and Barrel.
Cool. Another question, what is the final color you used for your paint option? Which one did you go with?
I went with Rustic Taupe from Behr. It's one of my favorites. It adds like a perfect contrast. It's nice and warm gray, but you can play it in either kind of color direction.
And Behr is B-E-H-R, the paint company.
Yes.
Oh, great. And we've got the link to the chair added to the chat.
Great.
Yes, you know it. A couple of technical questions coming in, Karina. One, I think a lot of people are suggesting PowerPoint is another great tool, which I'm sure you can just give your little stamp of approval on. And then do you have any like tips for how you crop the backgrounds out of these furniture? Like, it looks really nice without the white box around them. So I think that might be a great point to cover, just technically.
Totally, yeah. PowerPoint is a great option. I'm an Apple user, so I'm not too familiar with PowerPoint, but I assume it's super user-friendly for this. Getting out the white backgrounds can be tricky. However, most furniture retailers will provide a photo that's on a super easy to like crop out background that has 0 shadows. So if you are using Keynote for Apple, there's a really easy click and drag, which immediately removes your background. I can make a note of that in this presentation. And then I think there probably is a very similar tool for Google Slides as well. Otherwise, Photoshop. However, I recognize that most people do not know how to use Photoshop. It's kind of tricky. But I would say leveraging that really easy tool inside of Keynote. I'm blanking on what the tool is called. I have no idea.
I think it's called something funny like Instant Alpha, which maybe means something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really great tool. I've used it a lot as well. Slightly expanding on the topic of mood boards, Karina, a question I'm seeing is, how do you think about, so this is obviously a dream space, right? It's within PowerPoint or Keynote, whatever you're using, no limits or restrictions. How do you think about translating these ideas to a real space, and or like, where do you, when you're doing your creative process, like, does the constraints of like your actual space come into play?
That's a great question. I tend to use mood boards to really just see the furniture a little bit more up close than it is on a product detail page on a website. And then when I want to get one more step, I turn to Modsy, and I love to put the furniture actually into a 3D design, because although mood boards are so beautiful, it's really tough to see size and scale in them. So although I might have pulled this side table in with this chair, I'm not exactly sure where it's going to like hit its height on the side chair. So I would say going to see furniture pieces in real life, or taking advantage of a 3D layout tool just like Modsy, where you can actually see these pieces in your space, is a really brilliant next step.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Wow, there are so many great questions coming in. I don't even know where to go next. I feel like one big question though is around this idea of inspiration and how, if you're drawn to many styles, how can you start to think about one guiding style for a space, or even when you're making your mood board, how do you know when it's done? Like what's too much, and when, what's that line like? So maybe we can start first with how do you narrow down what you want the room to look and feel like?
Yeah, I think going back to your original image that you pulled, I know I said that original image doesn't necessarily have to be super defining, but you gravitated towards it in the beginning. So I would choose that photo as your guiding force in a way. And always be kind of looking back at it and referencing it. Maybe it's more than one photo, maybe it's a couple, but I would use those key pillars that you can identify in that image. Maybe it's, for me, maybe it was the curvature and the color scheme. And I know I wanted those in my design. I would always kind of be checking back and referencing if I'm still keeping that in mind as I'm on my interior design journey.
What about the paradox of choice? So how do you, there's so many places to find inspiration and shop for furniture. How can you learn not to be overwhelmed by choice when there are thousands of items to choose from?
Inspiration overload is real.
Yeah. I think that's a prime factor for decision paralysis, where you can't make a decision because there's just so much coming at you. That's a really great question. I mean, Alessandra, I'm going to leverage you here as the expert in interior design. What would you say?
I think it's really challenging. We're inundated every day by so many images and so many products. And, if you're an Instagram user like myself, it's my favorite thing to do when I drink my cup of coffee in the morning is look at things that are both new and old and spaces of design. And it's hard, right? And I think so. What I do is I have certain brands that are kind of my go-tos when places that I know that I love their quality. I generally really love their style. I want to see what they're putting out there. And that's, so I have that list. And then sometimes, when I'm exposed to new brands, I love to open up a new brand, look at a new site. But I try not to go to places that might make me feel more overwhelmed. So any furniture stores or furniture companies that have thousands and thousands of results when you type in chair, I usually stray away from those, and I'll stick to furniture brands and companies where when you type in chair, maybe you'll have like 50 to 100 that you could actually get through and not feel overwhelmed by choice. And so sometimes, the choice is amazing that you could have thousands of chairs to choose from, but if you can never get to the end of that list, it's going to be really hard to make a decision. So I would say, one, find some brands that you know and love that you can go back to over and over again. And two, if you're really struggling, that's a perfect place to enlist a design expert or interior designer, because they can really listen to what you're looking for, and they have that industry knowledge to say, hey, I think this is something that might fit perfectly what you're looking for. And it'll save you a lot of time and hassle, and then you can give them your feedback if you don't love what they chose, and they'll keep looking for you. So they'll kind of do the hard work for you.
I'm seeing in sort of a similar vein, a good question from Genevieve in the chat about a project with no deadline, and when is the time to pull the trigger and move forward, which I know I feel like a lot of people get stuck in the inspiration phase and you maybe don't want to, make a move too quickly. I don't know if you guys have any tips for that. I guess personally, for me, I like to align my shopping with sales. So if you know those big holidays coming up, that can be a great time to be like, okay, here, like plan ahead, think like, what do I want to buy? And then pull the trigger then, because you can take advantage of great deals. And then starting with like the biggest pieces, I think that will define a space really helps. I think, you know, if you start with maybe the rug that you love and then are trying to layer on a sofa and a coffee table and it's just not working, that can be a struggle. So starting with the pieces that will really set the tone for the space and then working from the forest to the trees, I find really helpful personally. Maybe I just answered the question.
I know I'm seeing design paralysis. People are calling out, and it's a true thing. It's real, right? We have so many pieces of inspiration that come across our screens every day, or our eyes if we're in those moments where you're traveling or going out to dinner. And so it's challenging. I think my advice too is at the core is to buy things that you love. It is to invest in pieces that you love. Mm-hmm. And so as you're exploring and as you're when you're going to furniture stores, when the world is really opened back up again, but even when you're shopping online, look for pieces that you love. Look for pieces that you can envision seeing in your home for years to come, and start to build around those pieces. Because when you're buying things that you're drawn to, because they're things that either speak to you stylistically, or you can envision your life with them. You can envision lounging on that sofa, reading a book in that chair for years to come. It's going to help you unlock all of the other parts. Whereas if you're stuck in the now and kind of sometimes the what you need for this very moment, and you're unsure if it's something that you're going to love in the future, sometimes those things can kind of even create more paralysis, because when you get them in a couple months or in a year or two, if you're kind of tired of them or you get over them, you're right back where you started. And so really, when you buy things that you love, you're investing in pieces that you'll have for a long time. And you might change out pieces over time, because we're all, like me, I'm constantly bringing something new into my home and reselling something else. But it's less paralyzing at that point, because I'm not focused on finding this one piece, but rather I'm exposed to something and I see it and I'm like, oh, that'll work really well with the things that I have.
Another thing that I just noticed myself doing is I will go back to films that I love, that I used to watch as like a kid. Father of the Bride is the one that's coming to my mind. I used to watch that when I was way younger, and I was drawn to the interior, and I was like, wow, I really want to live there. And here I am, like how many odd years we're not going to go there later, still thinking that I want to live there. I'm still drawn to those pieces. So sometimes every couple years I'll get a little bit lost in like my interior design style, and I'll be like, gosh, I don't even know what I like anymore because I'm so overwhelmed. But I'll turn back to those signifying films or places in my life, and I'm like, wow, that still resonates and hits home with me. So I'm going to still go and remember that direction.
I saw another couple of people mention this too. I'm going to tee this one up for you guys. So I think we all know this. There's this frustrating thing. So you're searching for inspiration. You're on Pinterest. You find rooms you love. And then you find a piece of furniture that you fall in love with and you can't find it. Ooh. What do we do? Like, any solves for that? I know it can be really hard.
That's heartbreaking. I have
it is.
Down many a Pinterest rabbit hole, many an antique hunting, and it's hard. I think just keeping up with it, and then also leveraging your network of. I've reached out to friends on Instagram asking, have you seen this piece? Like, I'm dying for it. And somebody will be like, actually, I just saw that at an Etsy shop in Canada. And so I think leveraging your network is really important in there. Alessandra, do you have any like grab and go tips for that?
I think, so one thing, if you are on Pinterest, they have that special little tool where you can kind of, it's almost like a little screenshot of the image, and they'll show you like products. But I often find the ones that I do that for, they're like these antiques, right? And then so you're on this hunt, and then you finally find it on First Dibs, and it's either 10x what you thought would be over your budget anyways, or it's sold and in a home in AD. So you're kind of out of luck either way. But so what I like to do is read those. If you can find the antique, and you can start to find the keywords that the seller used from the description, you can start to search those, and you can then go to, if it is an antique, Etsy, or I love Everything But the House, which is an auction site though, so it's things don't stay there forever. Ruby Lane has great antiques. eBay is another great place for antiques as well. So you can start to search for those keywords. Maybe there's a designer associated with it. And there are a lot of really good replicas these days. So you can find sites today, a lot of furniture manufacturers will remake some of those design classics. So you might be able to find a great replica, but look for the keywords. This is like my specialty, is trying to hunt down things that I've seen in like the corner of a space. And it's definitely, for those of you who are detectives or treasure hunters, it's definitely fun. Keep a list of the things that you're searching for and revisit, again, those sites that I talked about. You can do saved searches on eBay, and they will alert you when something with those keywords comes up. So you can kind of, there's some tricks to see when something new comes to the market. If it is a piece that is recently made, also try Craigslist. People are always reselling from top furniture brands and stores, and so you might be able to find it actually just secondhand.
And if you're just a person who you just want to see something and buy it, I have another tool for you. You guys should check out, shameless plug here, but with Modsy, we do all these awesome 3D designs. So if you check out, we have a whole design ideas section on our homepage, and we create 3D images with real furniture, and you can just shop everything that's in the exact room. So no hunting and finding for things. So if you're just someone who wants to like see it, like it, buy it, then I would recommend that for you.
Cool. I'm also seeing some follow-ups on asking specifically about replicas and thoughts on replicas. I do have some thoughts on replicas. I think
Alessandra has some thoughts.
I think it depends on what we're talking about. So for me, so my background is in design history, and so I just have a love for the material world and objects. But I don't have an endless budget, and so when I look at a replica, or when I will buy a replica, because I'm not above it, a lot of times what I look for are pieces that were designed to be produced at mass. So something like, if you look at a Seska chair, for example, which was designed by Marcel Breuer for the Bauhaus in the 1920s, which is really popular. And I know if you guys are sitting there saying Seska chair, what is that? Just do a quick Google search, CESCA, and you'll recognize it. Something that it was created in the 20s, repopularized in the mid-century, repopularized again in the 80s, so there's a ton of pop culture around it. But the Seska chair was actually created to be, we'll say, quote unquote, mass-produced. So replicas of that are actually, they are also mass-produced, and so they're very true to the original intent of the form. Where I think replicas maybe go awry would be, if you're trying to have a replica of the Mona Lisa, like that replica is never going to have that same aura. So, a poster is great. And I think I love art posters too, but that's where I think with replicas, maybe I'm being a little bit snobby, but I'll say when things were meant to be produced in large numbers, I would say replicas are going to be a better representation than a replica of something that was meant to be a one-of-a-kind piece. That replica is going to have a really hard time living up to its authentic piece. But also, again, there's so many great pieces. Like if you love vintage and antiques that are secondhand, that you may not even need to buy a replica. You might be able to find something that's really authentic to a period piece and super affordable, especially in the antiques world these days. Oh, someone had the Seska chair in the early 90s. Oh. It's back in style. So, if you still have it, you're in luck. I know we have so many questions that have come in.
I know.
This is great too, because these are questions that we can use to inform future blog posts and future sessions. So if we don't get to your question today, feel free, you can always email us and we can try and answer it. Or, you know, you can DM us on Instagram and we can try and answer it as well, or just stay on the lookout for the content that we're producing, because you might find the answer there also.
Yeah, I'll do a little plug. We've got a great blog with lots of answers to all things from layout to buying guides, trends, tips and tricks. So it's just blog.modsy.com if anyone wants more content. We've got lots of it. And then we also do, Alessandra and I co-host a podcast. So if you want more audio content, if you're more of an auditory learner, it's called The Render. And we talk about things like design history, trends, mid-century modern. So if you ever wondered why everyone is so obsessed with that style, we have an episode for you, and antiques. So we really run the whole gamut. So just a little plug if you want more, and can't wait until we come out with another round of these sessions.
Yes. All right, we can get to a couple more questions here. One question, which I actually think ties really well to a lot of what we're talking today with mood boards, is how do these translate into real life? And so when we're building a mood board, I know you talked about this a little bit, Karina, but we have these sort of inspirational mood boards, and then you have these mood boards that are almost like a 2D design of a space, where you would actually maybe take that and implement it into your space. How do we find, like, what are thoughts on translating mood boards into real life?
I think translating mood boards into real life is really fun. You know, once you've gotten to this point where you're seeing it all together, it gives you the confidence that you can say that you love these pieces together, and then you can kind of just add them to your space slowly over time. It doesn't have to be all at once. As I kind of talked about earlier, now that I've worked at Modsy, I probably could never design a space without seeing it in 3D first, because of that realism and the ability to see things physically in your own home without having to actually open the door is really, really nice. And so I think that that's my biggest answer that I tell everyone is, why wouldn't you put it into 3D to actually be able to walk around it virtually before you actually call the movers and say, let's get the sofa up the stairs.
Definitely. I have to give a special shout out to Ruth Ann, who I saw come up in the chat. I met Ruth Ann when I was at CB2 in New York, and she's been a long-time Modsy supporter and follower. So just special hello, Ruth Ann. It's so nice to see you there, and still supporting us all these years later. So I really appreciate it. So special shout out to you. One thing too, people are asking us to talk about, I saw this question from Patty S about, where do you get pieces from when hotels remodel? And I know it sounds like a really random question, but I'm going to answer it because the Waldorf Astoria right now is currently auctioning off a ton of pieces from their New York hotel. If you just Google Waldorf Astoria auction, you'll find it. So a lot of times, just keep your eyes out on the news or follow auction websites, and you'll find something like that. But so if anyone's looking specifically for some pieces that were part of a great hotel empire, you can get those. The auction, I think I saw it last week and looked at the preview. It should still be going on. So Patty, you might be in luck getting some old hotel pieces. Karina, there was a question about the sofa that you use. People are asking, what is the sofa? Is it comfortable? And then did we cover what the lighting fixture is too?
We didn't. No, I can speak to the sofa. The sofa is also from Crate & Barrel. It's part of their latest Leanne Ford collection. It is very, very comfortable. I have gone and sat on it in person. It is not here physically in my space yet. However, I'm really excited for it. It feels much like a cloud, if you will. Very unstructured, but still structured, if you will, with very comfortable pillows. And the pendant actually is one of our own products. I will link to it in our presentation. It's one of my favorites. It's very similar, or very large in scale, so great over a living room or a dining room table if you're thinking about that. But it is one of our own products available through Modsy.
And what about the boucle chair?
Oh, the boucle chair. The boucle chair is also from Crate & Barrel, and I don't believe it's part of the Leanne Ford collection, but I think if you look up boucle chair on Crate & Barrel, you'll be able to find it. You can also shop it directly through us too. We do have this product available, as well as the sofa. In fact, everything here we do sell.
And the rug. Everyone just wants to know everything now. The rug too.
Okay. The rug is available through Modsy as well.
Cool. Okay.
I found a fun question from Linda. Maybe we can just do a little round robin. If you guys could splurge on one piece in your room, what would it be? Furniture, new floor, etc.
Ooh, so a one-piece splurge?
Yeah.
Don't make me go first.
I would actually probably do a rug. I think rugs will last forever. Good old vintage rug is definitely higher in price, but those last for, Alessandra, like what, hundreds of years?
Forever, yes. Wool rugs are made to last many lifetimes, which is why you see so many vintage rugs that are really expensive. You have to care for them. You have to clean them properly and care for them. But what kind of world would we live in if we didn't care for the things that we love? So I highly recommend wool, any sort of wool rug.
That's a good one. All right. I would have said rug too, but I'm gonna mix it up since Karina already said it. For just talking purely fun, I think I would splurge either on an accent chair, like this gorgeous blue clay one, or a coffee table, because I feel like those are great statement making pieces. You can really show off your personality with them, but you can also take them with you if you ever move, unlike maybe a sofa, which might not fit through the door at your next place, or something that would clash more. I feel like an accent chair, you can use it in the bedroom, a living room. There's always a place for it. And same with a coffee table. Just a great way to really, like, you know, show off your style. So that's what I would say.
Okay, it's time for my answer now.
Yeah.
I think art is always a great place to splurge. So art is something that it's collectible. I think I will say though, and it's because being in the interiors world, I basically have like a splurge maybe a year. And so like I have my space designed, and then I'll see something that I'm like, okay, I really want, like, I really want this one piece. And so, you know, when you're designing your space from scratch, I think the splurge pieces are the pieces that are really going to make your room feel like you. And so that might be art. For you, it could be a sofa, because maybe you're someone who that's the center of your home. That's the piece that you want to be super comfortable. You know, you're going to use every day. Like Maddie and Karina said, maybe it's a rug, maybe it's an accent piece that is really something that's going to bring in personality. Yeah, I mean, so I would splurge on any of those things. Some things maybe where I wouldn't splurge would be, actually, you can probably see it. I did not do a good job fluffing my pillow behind me for this event tonight. But there's a drink table right next to my chair that I got at Target for $40. I needed a small drink table because that's where I sit and have coffee in the morning. And I was like, I don't want to, I was looking at a lot of things and they were $400 and $500. And I thought, okay, for a drink table, that's not where I want to splurge. And so I got that. I have an Arco lamp in here. That's a knockoff. So that's one place where I have a knockoff. And then other places that you can save a lot, maybe not splurge, things like pillows. Usually you can find really, really great trendy pieces. And also plants, maybe. That's one where I would say just, you can go to, there's some amazing local nurseries you can go to. Also, you can find some really great, really affordable houseplants at Lowe's and Home Depot. Mm-hmm. Ooh, what else? What else do we have? We still have time to take some more questions. This is fun tonight.
This is fun. Patty's got a lot of great questions. But here's another great one. How often do you redo your space? Is there a quote unquote rule for when you should change it up?
I don't think that there's a rule. I think it's all really personal and totally up to you. Some do it seasonally, like a seasonal refresh, throw in a few new pillows for wintertime, or maybe you're bringing in some darker accents. A complete space overhaul though, I I might be a little overwhelmed if I did that every couple of years. But there's no general rule. I think as long as you feel happy in your space, there shouldn't be like a pressure on you to want to like bring newness in. It should be something that is really native to you and something you want to do. If you want to throw in a couple new pieces every year, like that's amazing. If you want to do it every month, then that's great too.
I've heard once every decade you should maybe change your wall color. Seems like a reasonable ask. And then another thing that I like to do, even Karina, I know Karina's the queen of rearranging her, which she already has. So Karina, you should share your Instagram handle because Karina's got lots of great inspo. And one thing you've really taught me is that you can even just rearrange with what you already have. So maybe you have some art in your bedroom, swap it into the living room, you know, just get a little fresh perspective. Even rearrange your layout if your room allows you to. It's a great way to mix it up without having to, you know, buy new things, which I think is really awesome. So you can get that newness. Because I'm always the one who's craving, you know, something new, and it's a great way instead of, you know, doing some online shopping, just working with what you've already got.
Yeah, just changing things around in your room is a great way to like kind of trick your mind to be like, wow, I have a whole new living room all of a sudden just by moving my sofa to the other wall. I love doing that.
There's a great question here that I think ties into this a little bit. Leslie, who said, suggestions for building a mood board, and we'll say designing a space around a piece of furniture that you can't afford to replace, or maybe you're not ready to replace yet, but you don't love it. Like, how do you make yourself love your design?
Great question. I think for me, I have a great example right now. In my bedroom, I'm designing around an IKEA bed frame, which is for me really uncomfortable because I love a soft plush bed frame and I have that really hard one and it's just too white in my space. And I'm just, every time I see it, I get a little sad. So what I've done is I have like covered it with a makeshift stitched together cover so that it almost looks as though it's a DIY headboard cover in this kind of nice, simple linen fabric. That's, I think, one great example is just trying to figure out how to introduce the textures or the colors onto the piece of furniture that you might be more attracted to. So maybe it's a sofa and you're not into the color. Can you offset it with some different color pillows that you're more attracted to, or potentially a throw that's folded over the side? I think inserting the moments of the thing that you're attracted to potentially on or around the object that you're trying to work with will be probably your best help.
Definitely. Ooh. What about...
Hey, Karina, I just shared your Insta handle, just FYI. I hope that's okay.
Thanks, Maddie. No, it's totally fine. Shameless plug.
Yeah, it's okay.
Oh, here's a great one. Someone who's having trouble with two different decor styles. Specifically, they love Art Deco and Roman Romantic and are having a hard time bringing them together. So thinking of how do we bridge two styles together? I think this is the plight of all of us, right? I think we are all inherently eclectic by nature, although there might be a few of you out there who are diehard mid-century modern or diehard minimalists. But really, I think the fun thing about style, and this is something Maddie and I do talk about on the Render, the podcast, but the fun thing about style is we have so many inputs of where we find inspiration. And as we grow up, you know, you have like your grandparents' homes, your parents' homes, all of these places that make you feel at home and that remind you of home. And when you're an adult and when you're designing your own space, you know, there's a nostalgia around what home means. And so we're always looking backwards, but we're looking also, I think, in the present and likely in the future as well. And so we're always trying to figure out, how do you bring multiple styles together? I think the key is, and this might not be, you yourself might also be trying to bridge a style with a partner. But the key is to really think about, of these two styles, even when they feel vastly different, how can you find some similarities or common ground between the two styles? And oftentimes, if you look at them long enough, if you look at enough images, you'll find some similarities, maybe in textures or materials that both of those styles use. Maybe in color palette, for example. Maybe in artwork that might bridge these two styles. And so really what you're doing is not necessarily fighting the two styles, but trying to create this sort of third style that is a representation of both of them. And so you're really building on this eclectic space. And so it might feel like a fight at first, but this is also where I think mood boarding can really help, where you're pulling in pieces together and trying to understand, what could I pull from this Art Deco style and this Roman romantic style? What could I pull that will actually speak to each other in ways that each object is bringing its own style, but together they're creating this really beautiful harmony.
I just posted in the chat in case anyone's curious. Karina recently, we did a feature on a glam industrial style, which are two styles that you might say are completely opposite. One is super luxurious and Hollywood luxury, and the other one is very like industrial, as the name is, like lots of metals and bricks and leather. So we like experimented with how to combine them, and I think the result was really fun. So if anyone's curious, I linked it in the chat.
Great idea, Maddie.
Yeah.
That's a really good example.
Oh, another great question is advice on purchasing furniture with kids in mind. We get this a lot. Everybody is kids and pets. People are always very concerned about furniture and decor getting ruined, which is definitely something to consider. But also I think when you are designing a space for pets or children, think really critically about buying things that are durable and that have materials that can be cleaned. So it doesn't have to be, I think a lot of times people will hear people say, well, like I have really young kids, so I don't, like I just want to get something cheap and I don't care if it falls apart. I think what happens then is you are going to live with furniture that is going to fall apart. And so it's sort of like, I like to say that a rickety table can sort of give you this uneasiness of like a rickety life, where you have a solid table. Like if you think about it, when you're at a restaurant and your table is wobbly, there's an uneasiness there and you just want stability and security. And so for me, I like to think about within my home, how do I bring pieces into my home that can offer that stability, but also offer the durability? So look for pieces that are easy to clean. For sofas and upholstered pieces, you probably do want to steer away from pretty light colors. However, some tips are, if you're obsessed with the white sofa, get a white sofa with a slipcover that you can throw in your washer, and you can bleach it. If it is white, you can bleach it. So it'll always be looking crisp and clean. If you do want something of the lighter side, sometimes lighter grays tend to be a little bit more forgiving than say creams. Or if you can buy furniture that has fabric that is more durable or cleanable. So look for cleaning codes or fabric that's considered performance fabric. And those are things that if they do get stains on them, you normally can pretty easily get the stains out. If you treat the stains when they happen, they'll be able to come out. I actually just bought a Bissell steamer at Target a couple days ago because I have a lighter colored sofa in another room in my home, and it was starting, like my husband and I eat on it all the time, and like I was kind of embarrassed. I'm like, oh my god, we don't even have kids yet, and here is it's like me of all people. It was like there were a couple stains on it, and so we got this cleaner. It was just a Bissell cleaner, and it actually worked really well. So the fabric is performance fabric, and it made it look almost brand new, which I was really surprised about. So invest in the right cleaning products and that right fabric. Again, like we talked about with wool rugs, people are a lot of times afraid of wool rugs because they are expensive when you have kids or pets that might have accidents. But again, they are made to last a lifetime. They're made to be cleaned and to be cared for. So those are some of my tips for designing with kids and pets.
Mm-hmm.
I think you hit the nail right on the head. I really don't have anything else to add other than soft edges. So soft edges and no glass tend to be like really high on our list. So for example, the coffee table that's on the screen now would be a really great kid-friendly coffee table because it does have that soft, natural edge.
Yeah, and I'll add, I don't have kids, so of course everyone who has kids, you know your kids best, so you really have to think about like who they are and what their needs are. But one request I hear a lot is storage, storage, storage. So looking for, I like to call it stashable storage. So not like the cute open shelving that you have to make sure looks spick and span, but literally something like this basket on Karina's slide right now that you can just all the clutter into, put the lid on, and it looks great. No one knows that there's a huge mess inside. So you can also find coffee tables with interior storage. So that's a great 2-for-1. And then I also love, even like some sofas have like storage inside that you can like open them up and stash a bunch of blankets or kids' toys. So that's my tip.
Great. Yeah. Okay. Well, we're coming up to the end of our session. I love that we had so much time for questions today. I love how engaged everyone here was. We love you. We appreciate all the love and support and just coming and sharing with this time with us. So look out for, we will follow up and send you a thank you for attending, which will link to this presentation and the recording, so you can always come back to it. Spoiler though, I did lose it for like a good minute, so there will be one small section cut out in the beginning. But you'll have the whole presentation, and you can find the first 2 sessions if you missed them on our YouTube channel or on our Instagram. As well, and we'll send out a follow-up for everything. I saw some thoughts on future sessions. Feel free to send those in if you have other ideas of things you'd like to see or you'd like us to talk about. And you can always find us on Instagram. You can DM us, and we'd love to hear your feedback and your thoughts. But thank you so much, everyone who attended, and I don't know. Thank you, Karina, for leading us through this session today.